and then you have a permanent,
Like it, yeah. Full.
you have a permanent, clear, perfect lens right in your eye. Boop. So every time you take a picture, right back to the lens.
Okay.
So,
Good evening. We'll call the Plan Commission to order. I will ask staff to take a quick roll call.
Mayor Devine.
Here.
Wayne Clark.
Yes.
Jessica Katzenmeyer.
Here.
Ed Roshka.
Here.
Eric Torkelson.
Here.
Kathleen Degenhardt.
Here.
Brian Frank.
here.
Brandon Reinke.
Here.
All right, thank you. We've got 7 in a quorum.
All right, we have a quorum. Next item will be approval of the minutes from our May meeting.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any corrections, changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Then we'll move on to section D. And we'll start with item 2, certified survey map. Turn it
Thank
over
you,
to
Mayor.
staff. Yep.
Our first item tonight is a certified survey map proposed by the Luther Group at 10200 West National Avenue. This is the former site of Baker's Square, which closed in 2020. This property was purchased by the Luther Group, and they're proposing to split the site into 2 separate parcels to facilitate the redevelopment. They will develop the northern portion, and then the Guggenheim Group will be developing the southern portion. The zoning is C3. Here's the proposed split kind of through the buildings here, which this lower portion of the building will be torn down, so there won't be any connection or anything like that over the site. It'll be 2 completely separate sites. Staff recommends approval subject to these conditions. There was some kind of investigation done by the teams, including the Luther Group and the city attorney, to determine whether some setback restrictions that were in previous iterations of CSMs could be removed. These setback restrictions conflicted with what our zoning code. Our zoning code has a maximum 20-foot front setback, and these setback restrictions were a minimum of 25 feet. That was aligning with the 1970s zoning code, and basically the groups kind of worked together and identified that those could be removed through the CSM. The initial proposal submitted by the Luther Group does not, or still includes those restrictions, so the condition staff is recommending, and the Luther Group is agreeable to, is to just remove those restrictions because they're not necessary. And then it's also just subject to common council approval.
Thank you. Questions?
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. If there's no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. We'll move on to item 3.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Item 3 is a proposed site landscaping architectural plan for the northern portion of that site. This is going to be an eye care specialist. They're moving from an aging clinic that they have at the Lincoln Center nearby. They also operate clinics in Milwaukee and Wauwatosa. The site will have 5 physicians, 19 full-time staff, and 3 part-time staff. This is for this site, they're proposing in addition to the northern portion of this Baker's Square building. As I mentioned before, this portion here will be torn down. Most of that's on the other site, and this northern portion of the building will remain. And then they'll be adding on. They're proposing to add on to the north here for a total of just over 13,000 square feet. They're planning for construction starting in the 3rd quarter of this year and completion in about a year after. The hours of operation are proposed, just kind of typical operation hours for an eye clinic. The zoning is C3, so medical clinics are permitted use. Taking a look at the site plan now, the proposal focuses on renovating this portion of the existing building and then building a new addition to the north. One thing we'll note here is that the building is proposed to be in line with that existing building to make sense for the kind of logical flow of the hallways and the rooms and everything in the building. It does not meet the minimum requirement for the 20-foot setback in our zoning code. The applicant is proposing, or has already filed an appeal for an area variance. They are kind of bringing out the building a little bit, 5 feet closer to kind of more closely align with what the zoning says. Staff supports their request for an appeal with the Board of Appeals, as this kind of makes sense for the logical development of the site, and it's an addition versus a full new construction. So staff supports that variance request. The other changes are really focused in the parking lot. Currently, there is 113 parking stalls. It's kind of just a big blank asphalt slab. They're proposing to add landscaping islands and some other features like a refuse enclosure and reduce the number of parking spaces from 113 to 90. The code has a maximum of 67, but because this is a legal non-conforming parking lot, they're allowed to reduce the degree of legal non-conformity. They don't have to come into that conformance. So staff and then and the developer kind of agree on that as a good compromise to get to that number there. It does satisfy the ophthalmic construction consulting firm's recommendation for one space per 150 square feet of clinic space. As you'll see, they're adding some landscaping islands. They're also adding pedestrian connections to South 102nd Street to the east and also to the neighboring site to the south. There's going to be a pickup drop-off kind of zone here. As an eye clinic, there's a lot of patients who either may not be able to drive or are being picked up for an appointment where they can't drive back from. So this kind of drop-off thing is an important kind of feature of their site there. They also have this pedestrian walkway through the middle here. Staff is recommending kind of adjusting some of these features a little bit to kind of have this pedestrian connection be kind of within those islands so that a car couldn't like park across the line and kind of block that path. There's a refuse enclosure up here and then some more landscaping and screening from the western site in this kind of island right there. Now looking at the landscaping plan, there were some trees that were existing trees that are proposed to be removed as they're in the building site there. They are going to be increasing the amount of landscaping on the site though by adding plantings to these islands in the parking lot and then also screening on this west side there as well. Taking a look at the architectural plan, staff believes this is a well-designed building with a good look of materials. Primarily it's going to be stacked bond masonry, also vertical white metal panels. That's kind of this, there's the masonry here, here, and here, and then the panels kind of in this middle portion. This portion I'm showing you right now is what faces the parking lot. This portion here is what is facing the street on 102nd Street. They're also going to have some wood look metal panels as a kind of key accent, also dark bronze kind of metal copings and storefront style windows. A few key features to highlight is there's this nice entrance canopy with underlighting to the parking lot where people are kind of entering the site there, kind of highlighting where people will be coming in and providing some protection from the elements. And then also on the other sides of the building, the lobby area is, this is the kind of south facing side of the building here. And, here's the east facing side here. So that's kind of, the lobby's kind of accentuated at the corner there with the big windows and the kind of, metal accent. And so it's kind of a nice feature visually. Looking at the floor plan, so the client areas are shown in pink. Clients will enter from the parking lot through the entrance doors into the lobby here where there's a reception and things like that. Then the clinic facilities are all kind of spread throughout the rest of the building here with different exam rooms, workup rooms, staff areas, and kind of functional service areas too. Looking at the design guidelines, this is considered a major redevelopment, and so compliance with the guidelines is mandatory. The proposal satisfies all the applicable criteria except for one of them in the engaging spaces one, which it does not have really any outdoor space for resting or other forms of engagement. So staff recommends adding just a bench for patients, maybe awaiting pickup or something like that by the entrance or just kind of collecting themselves. Ultimately, we recommend approval of the site landscaping and architectural design review subject to these conditions. Common Council approval of the certified survey map, the application being made and approved by the Board of Appeals for that area variance to the front yard setback. Several revisions to those site landscaping and architectural plans, including the addition of one bicycle parking rack as required by code, adding that bench near the front entrance, aligning the sidewalk to meet Caribou's along that south property line, and then realigning those mid-lot parking landscaping islands with the pedestrian walkway, so the sidewalk kind of runs through that. Then also just some of our standard conditions, stormwater management, documentation and approvals, a traffic impact analysis, which was submitted for the joint both sites, and then a planned work being coordinated with our city engineering department. Any questions or comments?
I didn't see on the refuse enclosure, what are the materials being used for that?
I don't believe we have that plan submitted. It could be a condition that the planning commission wants to attach.
Yeah, as long as it matches the materials they're using for the building.
box.
Oh, yeah.
It's a secret entrance to the planning commission. Any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If there is no other discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. And we move on to items 4A, 4B.
Alright, thank you, Mayor. Items 4A and 4B are for the southern portion of that site. It's a conditional use permit and a site landscaping and architectural design review for Caribou Coffee. Caribou Coffee is a national coffee chain with a bunch of locations. It was found in Minnesota. It has a location right now in the Festival Foods building on Greenfield. This is going to be a new location. They're proposing to demolish this existing building, as I mentioned before, and construct a new drive-through and building. The building is small, 600 square feet, similar to the Big B Coffee that was approved several months ago. The construction would begin in mid-August and then be done by the end of the year, so a little quicker timeline than the eye care specialist redevelopment. Zoning is C3. A restaurant with accessory drive-through service is a conditional use in this district. Taking a look at the site plan, so the new building would be located here, facing West National Avenue. It's about 10 feet from the lot line. There's the building here, and then an outdoor dining patio that's kind of connected to the public sidewalk. Provides good access between the sidewalk and the kind of the entrance there to the walk-up window and to those facilities. There's a drive-through behind the building. It's kind of a uniquely shaped lot, so they kind of address that through this kind of unique drive-through layout. It provides ample stacking for the vehicles, so there won't be any backing out onto onto the street here. Plenty of line for them to kind of line up and go around this kind of landscaped island here. There is a little bit of a bailout lane here too, so if somebody gets up to the ordering spot and decides they don't want to order, they're still able to kind of leave once they get up to that point. The parking would then be on the west side of the lot. They're reducing the degree of nonconformance of parking from 23 existing stalls to 18 stalls. This is somewhat similar to the last in that the Plan Commission can approve this. There's no need for additional variances or anything like that. Some other features, there's pedestrian connections throughout the site. As I mentioned, the patio is kind of connected to that public sidewalk, and there's also a connection that kind of goes through the site here with crosswalks where the vehicles would go, and then it connects to the other site as well to the north. There's also some new landscaping and that outdoor dining patio, which I mentioned. Looking at the landscaping, it's going to be kind of lower, perennial bushes and things like that around, and perennial grasses around the kind of building here. There will be some screening with like arborvitae to kind of block the drive-through facility right there from the view of the corner. There's going to be some trees in the middle of this landscaped island. That's kind of the main landscaping feature. There's also this little small new landscaping island up there as well. Look at the architectural plan. It's kind of based off their corporate branding. They have their kind of main blue color. It's a hardy plank siding. There's a stone base and then metal roofing. It has kind of windows on different sides. This rear elevation facing the east will be screened with some of those arborvitae from the street, so even though there's that service door there, it won't be super visible from the public right-of-way. Look at the floor plan. This interior is just for employees. It's kind of laid out to maximize their service efficiency. It's basically just one big room plus a little bathroom. The room has a kitchen, restroom, storage, things like that. And there's both the walk-up window and a drive-through window as well for service. Looking at the design guidelines, this is a new development, so compliance is mandatory. Staff believes the proposal satisfies all those guidelines, and it's particularly strong as how it relates to building for people by designing that connectivity to the neighboring site and to the public right-of-way into the site, and having that well-designed outdoor space that'll help activate the street there. Staff recommends approval subject to these conditions. Common Council approval of the conditional use permit, which is, I believe, scheduled for July 18th. Common Council approval of the certified survey map as well to split that parcel into two lots. Some revisions to these plans to show additional landscape plantings along the north side of the property as requested by our city forester, as well as scale drawings of those landscaping beds and a landscaping species plan approved by the forestry team. And then also just a similar condition to the northern property to make sure the sidewalk is aligned between those two sites. And then just our standard conditions about documentation and approval for compliance with the stormwater management, that traffic impact analysis, which was submitted, and then just coordinating work with city engineering. Questions or comments?
Zach,
Go ahead.
is the applicant in agreement then with all the recommendations listed in item 3 then?
Yes, to my knowledge, he hasn't. Erwin is here from their
Yep.
team as well.
We have, and we've already begun addressing them, so we're in compliance with those, based on our revised plans, which we will submit after this meeting.
What's the refuse enclosure look like in this one?
Same thing. I think we don't have that.
Yeah.
Exact.
Coordinate.
Yep. We'll coordinate with building permits.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thanks for coming in, everyone. Most of our audience.
That's
there.
really gonna
Oh
clear
my
it up.
gosh, it was all that one? Wow.
Thanks for coming in, everyone. Yep.
Good luck to you all.
Thanks. Feel empty now.
Yep. Just us.
All right.
And
let's
the
go to-
public online.
And the public, yes. Let's go to item 5A, 5B.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for Automotive Vision Designs on the west side of the city at 11133 West Rogers Street. So this is a automotive tinting, detailing, and wrapping business that is proposed at the site. Hours of operation from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. No exterior changes are proposed for the site. The zoning of this site is I-1, and in the site, light motor vehicle services, including tinting, detailing, and wrapping, is a conditional use. We do have a tentative common council meeting scheduled for July 18th. As you can see on the site, there are no proposed changes to the site by the applicant. They are not the owner, they're leasing a portion of this existing building. There's a paved parking lot to the north, and the existing site includes a building on the south portion of the lot, right here. The floor plan is kind of difficult to read. We did need further coordination with the applicant and building inspections to kind of understand this better, to get a better accurate depiction of their business. But they're occupying about 4,000 to 5,000 square feet of workspace for the business itself inside that large existing building. They're on the eastern side of the building, and it was difficult to see, but right about here is where they would be occupying that space. Due to the minor nature of this development, it doesn't require the Plan Commission checklist. This is just a framework for review. It's not mandatory, but they do not satisfy most items on the checklist because it is a pre-existing building. With that being said, there is a motion to approve the site landscaping architectural design review for the proposed business with the following conditions in mind. The resolution of all code violations found during December 2022 occupancy inspection. Staff noted in the staff report that we did find some minor code violations that the applicant would have to work through before obtaining occupancy permits. Additionally, a basic site plan showing the location of any outdoor storage and vehicle staging for the subjected business, and then common council approval of the conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eric.
So for item 1 with the code violations, have any of those been addressed since December and resolved, or is it
Still at large.
so that, yeah,
But,
I guess the question then is
what-
like, does it make sense to like,
So planning and zoning does have we do sign off on occupancy permits, so we can withhold our approval until those conditions are satisfied. Same with building inspections. So, they can apply for occupancy, but they can't get their permit until planning
that's
signs
all
off. Yep.
resolved?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for like item 2, the basic site plan, has anything been submitted yet on that? And is that, I guess,
That will get us the basics. I mean, this condition sort of gets us the basic site plan and scope if they're gonna be doing anything outside. We just wanna ensure that all of a sudden, once they get their occupancy, that it's, the site's not gonna be chock full of cars, on the day after their occupancy is approved. So that's the reason for that site plan. just to understand the outdoor layout, once they have an occupancy.
So like an approval would just be just to keep it moving on, but it could still be stopped if, you know.
It could still be stopped if they do not resolve those code violations, and then also common council could vote to not approve this item once if it reached them, depending on. We would ultimately need further communication with the applicant for some of these items, but as of right now, we don't have anything from them.
So this is just the approval for the business to go into the location then, right? So is that what this
This
is?
is really just a conditional use, the auto or vehicle repair requires a
Right.
conditional use, so it's just setting the stage to move towards the conditional use, and then the next step will be council consideration before, at a public hearing.
So the code violations, is that the building or
All the violations are still, I mean, they need to, even if plan commission and council were to approve this, they can't continue to do business until those violations have been satisfied, and they need to satisfy those violations in order to get occupancy, so.
That's what those conditions are kind of stating then. So
Yeah,
that-
no, I was just wondering if it was because you said it was they were leasing it, so is it the building owner is the one who's actually having the,
Probably a combination of building owner and or tenant,
Okay.
depending on who made those.
It's kind of up to them
Yeah.
to work it out.
Yeah.
but yeah.
sure, gotcha.
How extensive are those is this something that is gonna take months for them to
The
resolve?
building inspection, I think we go back one slide, maybe I think there's, or unhide.
And I'll, let me explain my reasoning for asking that.
Sure.
I'd be tempted to table this for a month to get the site plan, because I'd be curious what the intentions are for outdoor storage of vehicles and what they're, unless you've had a conversation with them on like how many vehicles they intend to have at a time, or how many they intend to keep outside. I think we'd like to know that.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't wanna hold them up, but if it's gonna be,
And we could still have them have the public hearing that was already scheduled,
Okay.
and then, it could just be held by the council until the plan
Yeah,
commission
we could come back
recommends
with a report to the plan commission at the following month. Yeah. But so, I mean, here so plumbing looks like a fairly straightforward thing. It looks like a lav drain still not compliant, plumber to remove accordion tailpiece and install code compliant fittings. Doesn't sound too bad, but I mean, the building inspector, Ron Bailey, was indicating that there's some partition walls that have been constructed under a mezzanine without permits, inspections, or approvals. And some of those walls restrict sprinkler coverage, so that sounds like something needs to be figured out there. That could be a little bit more, depending on what it is, and the extent of it could be a little more intensive. Walls obstruct access to the warehouse area's northeast exit. Wood studs are attached to a metal C-channel, whatever. But I mean, so the building inspection part of it seems a little bit more significant. The plumbing part, while still important, looks like a fairly easy fix. But nevertheless, both of those inspections failed, and I can't tell you why the applicant or the owner haven't addressed these things since December 6th. But we
Yeah.
just wanted to call it out.
I agree, and I guess my comment, at the end of the day, I'm not overly concerned about the interior, but I
Yeah.
think I would like to see them come back with a site plan, or at least an explanation of what they plan to do for exterior storage, if,
Sure.
Yeah, and I would be in agreement with that as well.
I was gonna ask too, how many code violations are we talking about here with this site?
Just those.
It's just
Just
these two.
Yeah.
Okay.
so does that, what is our appropriate, do we make a motion to hold for a month? Is that how we would approach it?
Yeah.
Well, then I would move to hold this until next month.
I'll second that. Yeah, I'm in agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to item 6, Alice Tool and Machine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for Alice Tool, located right next to the Hank Aaron State Trail on the border of West Allis and Milwaukee. It was recently approved for the mural. The proposed mural was recently approved by the West Dallas Artscape Committee. It is on that northern side of the building, facing the Hank Aaron State Trail right here. The total dimensions of this mural, proposed mural, are 24 feet by 70 feet. It's located on currently a masonry wall on the north side of that building. It's currently just a gray wall with no architectural features on the existing building. Alice Toole, the artist for this is Aaron Labonte and Don Crumpos of Algoma, Wisconsin. As you can see, there are 2 or 3 murals that they have worked on previously throughout the state, and one I believe is in Illinois too. Ultimately, they will be working on this with the owner and CEO, Peter Rathman. Here's the mural location and the proposed mural. This is slightly different than the one that we provided the Plan Commission. They just got back to us today with a proposed alteration for the mural, but ultimately the idea of the mural still remains the same. It's largely just focusing on the legacy of manufacturing in West Dallas over the last 70 years that Alice Toole has been in business. You can see a few items such as an Alice Chalmers tractor and then a City of Homes and Industry sign to highlight that industrial legacy. Here's that I believe this is 94th Street for the where the Hank Aaron State Trail meets. It will be visible along the Hank Aaron State Trail. Peter Rathman, the CEO and an applicant, is working with the DNR, I believe, to maintain this portion of the trail for visibility purposes, essentially maintaining the brush and vegetation. With that being said, there is a motion for approval on the screen. Thanks.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Mayor, I think Greg Schmidt is here from Geotest.
I was wondering.
He may have stepped out.
We can, the next one's pretty quick too, so we can probably.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll be
do
quick.
Item 7 real quick.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
All right.
Can we just
You wanna
move
go
to
look
approve this one too?
Or is that your item?
That's my item. You can, go ahead.
Yeah.
Pinch hit.
Do you want to go for this one or? I guess Steve can do it. It's
All
fine.
right. No.
Oh, no.
We skipped it.
We skipped it, alright.
All right, Gregory Schmidt is here on behalf of Geotest. He's the president.
Yep.
Of the company, located on 116th, just between Rogers and Lincoln Avenue. It's on the west side of the street. The back yard sort of butts up to the Greenfield Park woods. The property is zoned I-1, light industrial, and it's an engineering firm. They do testing, lab work, among other things. And then, and there's also a significant amount of office within the building. So Geotest has been around for some time, and they're looking to renovate the building as well as put on a 1,500 square foot addition on the southwest corner of the building. So basically right back in this area is where the addition is going to go. Right now it's just sort of an open area with access into the building with overhead doors. So we'll take a look at that next. But and then the existing building up here. So the new building, or the refinished existing building, really isn't going to change too much, other than it's going to have a fresh new look. If we go back just a slide here, you can kind of see here's the existing front face with the storefront window system on the front and an entry door. And then on the side of the building, a little further back here, you've got overhead doors, and then back here is where that addition's going to go. This is just another building next door. There's a small front yard area out in front. So the front facade that we're looking at here, this faces 116th Street. The form of it's really going to stay the same. It's just going to be new finishes on the exterior. You're going to go from a metal siding to a more architectural metal fascia panel. Probably very similar to what's across the street at Winter Services when they modernized their facade. There'll be new storefront windows with low E glass, insulated, and as well as clear anodized 2-inch window frames around that. And then new signage on the will be installed on the above the door. So that's just sort of a more modern look to the existing building. And then on the southwest corner of the building, this is the south elevation, which faces internally in the site. The site's a parking area. We'll have basically a CMU or concrete masonry unit block infill with clear story windows, and then coping above. So very utilitarian, but again with windows being added and the materials matching what's on the sides of and rear of the building. It conforms, and we feel it's appropriate for this light industrial area and this building. And then just a look at the floor plan, the office areas, lab testing areas, those are all pretty much staying the same. I think there's some minor tweaks internally with some of the office areas and maybe additional conference room areas here, but the big change really is the 1,500 square foot addition here. This is going to be just additional storage and staging area, racking for the incoming things that come in to be tested, and I guess before they go out, I guess things can be stored here internally within the building. It just gives them a little more flexibility to do business and deliver top-notch customer service, right? So
That's right.
yeah. So. And then site and landscaping. The site does feature a front yard with some bushes along the foundation. Some additional, those existing bushes along the front of the building will be removed and replaced with newer bushes. I think burning bush, spirea, some daylilies and other perennials being added out in front here. It'll still keep that lawn area out in front. Street trees will remain. The parking area shown here, there's a handful of parking stalls, about 12 or so parking spaces on the south side of the building, between the property line and the building itself. Those will remain. These parking stalls back here, I guess it's maybe a little up in the air as to if these are technically parking stalls or if it's more of like equipment storage or staging.
Well, on that side, it's mostly all work trucks.
Yeah.
I think we've got 12 or 13 work trucks there. It's the other side where we have a lot of trailers and right now some storage containers that we would not need after this, but.
So I think in our staff recommendation, one of the things that's we're asking for is maybe just, if these aren't necessarily parking stalls for customers or visitors, maybe just to reduce the number of, I guess, stalls on the site plan, because the number here does sort of drive the number of ADA stalls, and they do have one right now. I guess they could potentially have another here, but they're at that point where if they go over, I think it's over 25 spaces, it pushes another requirement for an ADA stall. And that's all well and good if that's the way you want it. If you want another one, but I mean, you could probably.
Yeah,
if this
actually
is
what we're
really
thinking at the
storage.
corner of the building to put a no parking area for sample delivery, sample drop off,
Okay,
to have access to, for clients to be dropping off samples.
got it. Okay. But otherwise, the site is surrounded the backyard here with a fence, a chain link 6-foot tall fence with slatting. It is, there are other surrounding buildings nearby, so I mean, the chain link fence is acceptable. It's in fairly good shape, and with some of the paving improvements that are being made here, the fence is actually, this section of fence here with gate is going to be removed, but then put back in once the paving is complete. There's a new storm catch basin that's going to be added here, which will be connected to the existing catch basin at the front of the site. So really I don't think there's going to be any excavation or changes out here in the city right of way. Most of the earthwork, I think, is going to be done right on site, on premise. So. And just a closer look at the landscaping area. Spirea, some other perennials. I forget what this is. One of these is, I think, a burning bush. And then our recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions. But basically, the landscaping plan is out, for review, and we're just waiting for our city forester's comments specifically on the species. None of the species that are proposed here are, we're not proposing any palm trees or anything too exotic. So I think it's a fairly solid list of landscape, but the forester will review that. removal of the barbed wire if that applies. I don't think there is barbed wire fence on the site.
No.
And part C here shouldn't be there. Any work in the street right away, this is kind of just a disclaimer, if there's any work in the city right away, which there's not anticipated to be, but otherwise would need a street excavation permit. And then the stormwater checklist is being completed by Greg's architect, and we expect that soon. So those are the main conditions, and I don't know if there's any other questions or comments, but we're recommending approval.
Questions?
Right?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. If there is any other discussion, if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll move back to item 7.
Yeah, really nice actual. Kept and all that stuff, you know.
It's easy when all the plans are just like, all the plans are really laid out like that, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, they really kept it up good, just building,
All right.
I think it's good.
Steve just does not want to do this item.
Jack,
I'll do it. Okay.
It's just
All
a
right,
really,
so this is a proposed mural for Pick and Save. Painted sign and mural display on the south facade of the existing building. There is existing wall signage on the west facade. This mural is going to be highly visible along West National Avenue from new developments including Sona Loft and then Oak Brewing. Mural is going to be right here. The artist is Fred Kames. He's the artist who did the Peanut Butter and Jelly Deli mural and a few other murals in the Milwaukee area. Right here is the proposed mural display. These are the colors that are proposed. A funky color scheme. It's different fruits proposed on the building with the text serving Wisconsin communities, and then since 1872 to honor the legacy of, is it Kroger?
Brownies?
It's based off of?
Roundy's,
Okay.
Kroger,
I don't
Is it
know if it was
Roundy's
based
or
off of
Kroger?
Roundy's or Kroger, but it's
Dash
honoring
Kroger.
that legacy. With that being said, there is a motion for approval on the
I'll
screen.
move.
second. You could have done this 20 minutes ago.
You're right, you say the concept image does not display the final chord schemes of the mural.
Yeah, so this one that is proposed, we recently reached out to the applicant and then we got further information. The one that I believe that was provided to Plan Commission showed an all blue
I like when things
display.
are laid out like that,
This
so-
is since
so
changed
well,
and been updated by the
that makes it
applicant.
easy for us.
And also the applicant did not give the dimensions of the proposed signage.
Yeah, so we have received new information on that dimensions and then the sign plan itself since the staff report was written. So we did mark off that first condition of approval as something that's not needed anymore due to the sign plan being submitted.
I'm sorry, I missed the part about the signage, the size.
Oh, yep. So that's going to be 24 feet by 186 feet. We didn't get this information initially from the applicant, but since the staff report has come out, the applicant reached out to us and provided that information.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think we have a motion and a second.
Oh, we do, okay.
Correct.
Any other discussion then?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Ayes have it, the motion carries, and we'll move to item 9.
Sure. Next item is our TID number 9, or tax incremental district number, or 19, at 85th and National Avenue, basically. This is the site of the Clark Oil Building, which was constructed in the, probably 1930s and, or 40s. And it is, it's a building that's been around. You've probably passed by numerous times when you're in the 84th and National Avenue corridor. There is no longer currently occupied with tenants. It did once upon a time have several smaller tenants, as well as I think it was the location for a Clark Oil Company, and then later a light manufacturing and office facility Diamond Direct or something like that. But the site has been purchased by Three Leaf Group, and they were before Plan Commission late last year in October, and Plan Commission approved their conditional use for a 247 unit development, and 6 stories tall. Sort of looks at rendered view like this. You can kind of see the the transition from a maybe two-story building to a 6-story building, which will bring a lot more vitality to the neighborhood, more residents living in the area, utilizing the park, maybe spurring some additional commercial development in this area of National Avenue. Within our National Avenue corridor plan, it was done in 2016, as well as our 2040 comp plan. Both of those plans called for additional residential development to spur growth within this area. And that's basically what we hope happens, I guess, with this development. It'll certainly liven up this part of the corridor. And then the TID area, the boundary is shown on the right. It's really just for a single parcel for this parcel, which consists of the Clark Oil building. That'll be removed. The site's currently fenced off, and they're prepping for demolition a little bit later this year. So it is a single parcel TID, former Clark Oil building, Three Leaf Partners, the new 247 unit development. It's consistent with the 2 plans, the strategic vision for National Avenue as well as our comp plan. And high density residential fits not only the zoning map, I mean the zoning is zone C2 neighborhood, or C2 commercial, which supports multifamily development, but then our land use plan, our future land use plan, classifies this property as mixed use, which supports both residential, high density residential, as well as a future possibility for commercial, where you can maybe mix in some commercial, retail, or so on with the apartment. While that's not the plan at Three Leaf, it's certainly within the wheelhouse of the zoning district. So with that, Plan Commission's role this evening, we did provide a summary of kind of the TID project plan within your staff report. But Plan Commission's role really is to determine whether or not, this site is zoned and the land use is appropriate for the project, for the TID project that's going to basically help support some of the financing for the Three Leaf development. So with that, we feel it is, and we are recommending approval.
Thank you. Questions? Motions?
I'll move for approval.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then we'll move to item 10, the plan, update on the comp plan.
Thank you, Mayor. So the second phase of our comprehensive plan public engagement is wrapping up right around now. It ends officially on June 30th. This focus has been on visioning and really asking people what they want West Allis to be like in the future, in 20 years specifically. We've had a really successful engagement period throughout this month of June. Talked with 403 different people in the community. That's a total of 767 people. So we're almost to our ultimate goal of over 1,000 people that have been a part of making this plan. We did a bunch of different things this period. More kind of in-person, at more in-person events as the summer's kind of kicked into gear. So we did an online survey like our first phase, but we also hosted, the mayor hosted the East Allis Mayor's Ride, which started at Greeby's and went through the East Allis neighborhood. There's, I think, like 40-something people there. Our staff attended the bike rodeo, which was a kind of event for children, teaching them how to bike. We got feedback from parents and stuff like that there as well. We also tabled at the Food Truck Friday, the Cheese Wheel Classic, and then the summer concert series as well. And so here's some pictures from it. This is from the Mayor's Ride, right by Beloit Road right there. And then this is from the Cheese Wheel Classic. And there's Jack talking to some folks.
Working the crowd.
Yep. So a few things that we've really heard a lot in this period is that there's a lot of focus on residents wanting us to be walkable and bikeable with safe streets, being a home to great parks with more programming and more amenities. We've heard from a lot of people different ideas for different parks. A lot of focus of people was on being diverse and family friendly, kind of drawing in more young people and families as well. And then also a lot of people love the different events, festivals, gatherings, and stuff, and wanted more of that. A lot of people had some interesting ideas, and some of them like bringing back some of the old events that the city maybe doesn't want to bring back, but like the Rum or was it the garbage one or something?
Oh, the trash.
The trash treasure, yeah. So there's some talks about stuff like that. But anyway, the overall picture is that people really like all the stuff the city does in terms of events. And once more, here's a little this is what people actually wrote at one of our tabling events at the summer concert series. And these are some of the word clouds from our survey that we sent out with some of those key themes people mentioned, things like being safe, friendly, diverse, affordable, clean, welcoming, things like that. So what's next? We are going to be moving into our third and final phase of the kind of engagement before we develop the draft plan. So this third phase is going to be focused on recommendations, like what specific actions the city should take to make West Allis a better place to live. Our engagement is again going to be kind of focused, meeting people where they are at these different community events. We'll be tabling it in a variety of different things. In July, we're going to post that survey right after the 4th of July. We'll be tabling at the farmers market. On Saturday the 22nd, we welcome you all to come to the Milwaukee County Department of Transportation actually is hosting a Safe Streets meeting for the community at the library. It's kind of part of a broader county-wide plan for transportation safety. We're also going to be tabling at West Allis Night Out. And then in August, we're likely going to be having another bike ride. This one sponsored by the 2nd District Alderperson and potentially Lehman Brewing. And then also be tabling at Food Truck Friday.
Where is that going to be on the 10th? Because that's right during State Fair.
Good point. Maybe we won't do the 10th. That was a tentative date set by myself. So maybe we'll do it a little bit later. Yep, maybe something like that. Good call.
Be in the expo center.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
So,
around the mile.
Yeah.
Talking to people.
Yeah, probably a good call. That was just I just plopped that on
Okay,
there because we
gotcha.
were tentatively thinking of something. Any questions or comments about the comprehensive plan stuff?
Nice feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
You feel like you're getting new people at each event you
Yeah,
go to?
definitely.
Not
And
just-
it was really actually interesting. Like the differences I think in the people that we get at the different events are pretty significant. Like our online survey, we ask for kind of identifying information in terms of like age and stuff like that. And that crowd definitely skews a bit older, probably the people who are on our mailing lists and things like that. Even in the open house that we had in that first phase was also kind of maybe a little bit older crowd, but we've gotten I think a lot more representations of like families at these events. Food Truck Friday in particular, there was a lot of families out there, so that was cool to see. The Cheese Wheel Classic was interesting because there was more visitors to West Allis at that one, more people who weren't from West Allis but were visiting and have different ideas about what they think West Allis could be like too. A lot of like Milwaukee and Wauwatosa residents in particular. So it's been definitely kind of cool to see the different groups and bike rodeo that focused especially on families with kids and things like that too. So
New people coming in too. It's interesting to hear where people have come from and they've settled in West Allis. I mean, there's a couple at the Cheese Wheel, I think, from Portland, and there was another couple from Indiana
who like
at the,
moved here.
concert
They live
series
here
who
now.
Moved
Yep.
here and they bought homes here and they love it and they want to know how to get involved. So I'm pitching getting civically involved with Plan Commission and
Good.
Marty may have found the next 2nd District Alderperson candidate. We'll see. I mean,
All right.
there's new people, new energy. It's good.
Good. Any other questions? Good. And we'll go to item 10, the project updates.
All right. So for our June project tracking, not too much movement on a lot of our items, but in our May item, one of them, the 84th Classic Cafe, that patio construction is nearly complete. You can see it's looking pretty nice with the fence here and the kind of colored concrete there as well. Some past items then, the zoning code update was approved by Common Council on June 6th. So that included things like restricting car washes for more districts, things like that. And then the council also approved those Burnham Street rezonings that the Planning Commission also recommended to kind of rezone some of those properties to commercial instead of industrial.
Questions? Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.